The tragic death of Jill Meagher reopens the wounds of literally hundreds of families who've lost loved ones to career criminals who reoffend while on parole. The case has already sparked fresh calls for multiple offenders to be locked up and the keys of the jail cell to be thrown away. Jackie Quist takes up the story.
The system was flawed. The system failed Jill Meagher.
The opportunistic rape and murder of Jill Meagher 9 months ago left a nation in shock. Devastated for her family, 30,000 took to the streets over the violent and senseless murder of a beautiful young woman. Jill's husband Tom telling the Supreme Court yesterday how haunted he is by his wife's terrifying final moments at the hands of the grotesque and soulless serial rapist Adrian Bailey. Bailey's sex crimes date back 23 years. Released from prison in March 2010 after serving an 8-year minimum for 16 counts of rape against 5 victims, he'd already committed 1 crime while on parole. He'd assaulted a man, breaking his jaw. Jailed for 3 months, but because Bailey appealed, he was bailed. And despite a parole board review, his parole continued. Another sexual predator freed.
Had she known he was on parole, well, there's a fair chance he might have just been able to go to the police station and said, "This bloke is harassing me."
Alan and Shirley Irwin live with the agony of losing not 1 but 2 daughters. 23-year-old Colleen and 21-year-old Laura Irwin, both murdered by a career criminal out on parole.
2 sisters in their early 20s have been found murdered in their Altona North home.
They both had terrific jobs. They were just in their absolute prime of life.
The girls didn't know their neighbour was a convicted murderer. William John Watkins' record dating back to 1985 and included convictions for rape, aggravated burglary and assaulting police.
We spent a lifetime, 20 years bringing up these children, teaching them, educating them and all that, so someone can just, the legal system can just take them away from us.
The parole board makes something like 3,000 or 4,000 decisions a year about whether to release people or not, and it's really a case of managing the risk.
Professor Ari Freiberg heads Victoria's Sentencing Advisory Council and says the Adult Parole Board has an onerous responsibility.
In many cases, in fact about 60% of the cases, nothing happens. When it goes wrong, it can go catastrophically wrong.
Parole in Victoria is a privilege, not a right.
The Jill Meagher killing rocking Victorian lawmakers to the core, leading to tougher parole laws. An emotional Victorian Premier, Dennis Napthine, claiming a further review will build on those reforms.
Sex and violent offenders who commit further offences while on parole will go straight back to jail.
The alternative is not to let anybody out or not to let serious offenders out. And the choice is not between releasing them on parole or for them to stay in jail forever.
The so-called Rockhampton rapist Leonard Fraser was never paroled. He did every day of a 12-year jail term, with prison authorities terrified he'd reoffend upon his release.
But there is hope. I'm hoping she's still alive. But it's been cold weather.
In 1999, Teresa Steinhardt's 9-year-old daughter Kira was abducted and murdered by rapist turned serial killer Fraser.
That is not a human. That's an animal.
Do you think you deserve another chance?
I do. I know I've done wrong and whatever else.
Jesse Kelly was once the most wanted man in New South Wales, on the run after he crashed a stolen car during a police pursuit, killing his 2 best mates. The tragedy sparking the notorious Macquarie Fields riots.
I try very hard. Every day I try, from where I come from, where I am now, I think there's a big difference.
While Kelly assured 7 News he's a changed man, fact is, while on parole, he was busted for drink driving. Caught again this year, driving while disqualified. His 2011 parole still not revoked.
You've only got to look at their track records and it will tell you that it's going to end up in disaster.
Police and victims groups left frustrated. Noel McNamara is president of Victoria's Victims of Crime Association. His bugbear, suspended sentences.
We've been pushing for suspended. I've been out now for over 20 years and we've been pushing for getting rid of suspended sentences for violent criminals.
That system in Victoria under review later this year, as are New South Wales parole laws. Across the country in 2012, 50,169 prisoners were released on parole.
If you don't release them on parole, if they are ultimately to be released, you want them under a period of supervision.
As for community corrections orders, thieves and fraudsters call that system a joke.
It's just a waste of time. They just laugh at it. They go out of the court with a big smile on their face and laughing with their mates as they wander down the street and back into freedom.
Victorians expect our cities and towns to be places of safety.
But they're not. Tonight, Victoria Police are hunting 58-year-old paroled killer Clive Stone, sentenced to life in prison for the vicious 1985 murder of an intellectually disabled woman. It's the third time Stone has breached parole. The public warned not to approach him.
Jackie Quist reporting there.